Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to our rather brief webinar on profile in your practice. It's a real pleasure for me to be here with you today. My name is Michael Delaro. Let me just advance the slide here so we can make sure it works, I guess. But anyway, my name is Michael Delaro. I'll be your presenter for the afternoon for the next 60 minutes or so. Very briefly, I had my own accounting practice, did a lot of tax work, and used ProFile almost throughout that whole experience. I'm trying to remember when I started using ProFile, but I think it was like 1999 or 2000 or something. So we had ProFile almost exclusively while I had my accounting practice. And it's a real pleasure to be here with you. I know what it's like to have a busy accounting office and especially during tax season, things can get pretty hectic. And hopefully today we'll be able to show you a few tips and tricks and tools available in ProFile that will make things easier for you. I should mention that I'm not alone. We've got a whole team working with me in the background. I will introduce at least one member of that team later today, but we also have a couple of people who are going to answer some questions. So if you have any questions, you'll see a Q&A panel that you could type your question during the presentation. And we'll be able to answer those questions back at you. So we've got Benoit Rose, who's here with me today, who's going to be answering some questions. And we've also got, oh my word, brain fade, trying to find your name. I'm sorry. Let me just see if I could, yeah, I'm sorry.
Julie Lachance.
Sorry?
Julie Lachance.
Thank you, Julie Lachance. I'm not seeing your name, Julie, sorry, on the list of attendees for some bizarre reason. And Julie is actually with ProFile Care Team, and Julie and Ben are going to go ahead and answer questions in writing. So go ahead and open up that Q&A panel if you've got any questions. And as I say, you'll get a written reply. We're going to try to leave 5 or 10 minutes at the end of our presentation and see if any other questions come in. And we'll also have a little wrap up. Stacy is here from the Intuit ProFile team. Stacy's gonna just make a final kind of announcement at the end of our webinar. So there you go. We have a few things that we want to focus on. We want to talk about the ease of integration, how to integrate ProFile in your practice. We're going to talk about how to become more efficient, some tools that exist in ProFile to make managing your practice a lot easier, a lot more effective. And we're also going to show you a few tips and tricks, as I said earlier, on how to just get through those tax returns much more quickly. And there's a lot of automation tools. More and more, we're seeing online tools that are baked into ProFile, and we'll show you a few of those that you can use to just make things smoother. And as I said, we'll have a few final words at the end of our presentation. Okay. So let's get going. So integrating ProFile into your practice, you know, I'll tell you, as I say, we started using ProFile back in, let's say 2000. And prior to using ProFile, we were using something else. And if you're switching from another tax application, you know, getting up to speed is sometimes, there's that learning curve, right? And so integrating ProFile into your practice, if you're new to it, or maybe you're just moving into a new office, you were working somewhere else, and now you've got to learn ProFile. And so again, that learning curve is always there. But one of the things that I found is that there were right away there were some features, even back then, you know, going back to, let's say, the year 2000, there were some features in ProFile that I found right away made it so easy to integrate ProFile and to get up to speed on how it works. And so that's what we want to do in this section, is just point out some of those tools. So in a sense, what we're asking is, if you're still sitting on the fence, why profile? Why should we even consider profile? If that's where you're at. Well, there's a lot of features. There's a lot of tools, including an extensive auditor. I call it my second set of eyes. So what we do is and whether you're working on a T1, a T2, a T3, or any kind of work you're doing in profile, the auditor is always there scanning the tax return, 2,800 plus diagnostic checks, and it picks out things that maybe we miss. Some things are pretty evident. Is the CPP right? Do you have the right CPP? Or there are other things that are more like, on the tax side of things, in the sense of, are you sure you want to do this? Maybe if you did it this way, you might save some money, or to save the taxpayer some money. And so that auditor is always there, just scanning every tax file. We're going to talk about help options. There's a whole host of comprehensive help options available to you. Because let's face it, when we're in the midst of tax season and we've got all these returns to crunch out, every once in a while we get stuck on something. And so we're going to show you all of the various resources that are available to you. You can customize profile, you can personalize it, from the look and feel to the toolbar that you could activate, deactivate. You could add your own icons to a part of the toolbar. You could customize the letters that you want to send to your clients. There's a whole bunch of ways in which you can customize profile. And yeah, online tools, we'll show you those, at least a couple of them, a little bit later today. And finally, if you have clients that are on QuickBooks, then you'll be happy to hear that Profile actually works with QuickBooks as well. So if you've got, let's say, T2 clients, you've got to prepare a T2 return, the client is on QuickBooks, especially if it's QuickBooks Online. There's a whole bunch of ways in which QuickBooks and Profile can make that whole process much more efficient for you. There's some year-end tools in QuickBooks that you can create that year-end file. You could create that Giphy file in QuickBooks, and instead of keying everything into Profile, all you have to do is import that Giphy information. So your S100, your S125, you know what I mean, balance sheet and the income statement can just be imported right into Profile. And what's great about that, I don't know about you, but oftentimes we're working on a T2, for example, and you key in a whole bunch of numbers, and then you go back and you analyze things and you go, well, actually, if I change this or I change that, we might change the tax liability. And then you got to go back and rekey in a bunch of numbers on the S125 or the S100. And well, you don't have to do that. All you have to do is re-import the Giphy. It's so much easier. So we'll talk about a few of these tools a little bit more. There is some extremely competitive pricing available when you use Profile. Right now, if you go to the website, you can save up to $140 on Profile. You'll see that right on the Profile website. You could try it for free. You could buy only what you need. So again, Profile has T1 module, T2 module, T3, and then there's Profile FX. So the Form Explorer, which I used a lot. The Form Explorer is a way that you could do charity returns, for example. You could do all kinds of elections. If you want to prepare T5s, a whole bunch of other stuff. You could do that with Profile FX. You don't have to buy it all. You buy what you need. In addition, there are no royalties. I know that some tax applications will charge you a volume royalty. So you buy the application, and depending on the number of tax returns you prepare, you have to then pay a certain royalty based on the number of tax returns. That doesn't apply in Profile. You buy the modules that you want to use, and off you go. There's no other fees after that. Another really important consideration.
Mike, if I may just interrupt for a second. The discount will be available until until October. On the slide, we were showing September 26th.
Oh, okay. Thanks for that, Benoit. Yeah, you're right. I see that now. It says sale ends September 26th. That was just when I took the screenshot from the website. I should have crossed that out or blanked it out. So thanks for pointing that out, Benoit, that the sale is still available. And so you can go to the website and check on that. The other thing that I should point out is there is an accuracy guarantee. So if you see right there, the bullet says, if ProFile makes a calculation error, Intuit will reimburse you for any interest charged by CRA on reassessments. So they're so confident, Intuit is so confident of the accuracy of its software that it will reimburse you for any errors that ProFile made. And again, you could read more on that directly on their website. The other thing that is great about ProFile, and this is one of the things that I noticed right up front, is that what you've got is all modules, all provinces, all tax years baked right in. So I'm just going to show you very quickly. Let me just go over to ProFile here. So I've got ProFile running at the same time. So I'm just going to open up a window here, and I'm just going to click on open. And what you'll see is I can open a whole bunch of different types of tax files all in the same window. So I think it went to sleep a bit. So let's give it a bit of time to kind of wake up. There we go. And so you can see here is I've got these tabs. So do I want to open a T1 return? If I want to open a T1 return, I could just click on the T1 tab. What year do I want to work in? So notice we go all the way back to 2009. Other software applications I've used, each year was a different version of the tax application. That doesn't apply with ProFile. Notice I've got tax years from 2022 all the way back to 2009. And then I could open whatever I want or create a tax return, a T1, and whatever, and any of those years. I could also at the same time open up a T2 return if I want to. And so I could have at the same time T2 returns open, T1 returns open, and then of course you see a tab for T3 and you see a tab for FX. And so I could have all of those open at the same time, various years. And it might happen that you're working on a client file, you're doing the T1 and the T2 at the same time, perhaps. And so that's all available to you right from the same window that we just had open. Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint. And the other thing we should point out is the interface that you work in. As you could see from this screenshot, there's other tax applications you might be using where the input screens don't look anything like a tax form. And so you don't really have that with ProFile. You have, we used to say, I don't know if they say that anymore, what you see is what you get. I don't know if you remember that expression. And so what you're working in looks like a tax return. And for some people, it's important for me. I like to see where my information is going. And so you can see right off the bat that your T1 looks like a T1 and your T2 will look like a T2 and so on and so forth. And so let's go back and do that again. So if I open up a tax return, okay, so I'm just going to open up and see if I've got something already open here. I'm just going to pick anything. So these are all fictitious files that I've got here. And look how that's okay. So I've got this zoomed in. I'm just going to show you that later, but what the heck, I might as well show it to you right now. So you could actually zoom in and out as well. So what happens is that when you're working on a tax return, oftentimes your eyes get a little bit tired. After you've been doing this for a long time, your eyes get a little bit tired. And so there's a little icon, a little magnifying glass that you could zoom in or zoom out. Okay, so at the end of the day, after you've been working a 12-hour day and you're getting those tired eyes, then you could just go to the toolbar up here and you can just click on the magnifying glass and zoom in on the tax return. But at the end of the day, here's what it looks like. There's your T1, okay? And you can see a T1 looks like a T1. And you can start working pretty quickly when you want to prepare any type of tax return. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. And the other thing we want to talk about is flexible licensing. I don't know about you, but some folks will have two computers. You might have a desktop machine at the office, let's say, and you might have a laptop that you carry around with you, you bring home, let's say. And sometimes you're working on the desktop machine, sometimes you're working on the laptop. And with flexible licensing, you don't have to buy two licenses. What you could do is you buy a license, whatever your license is, T1, T2, and so on and so forth. So you could go and enable flexible licensing. Let me just show you where that is. So when you're in ProFile, all you have to do is go to the help area, okay? And then you could go and enable flexible licenses. See, it says here suspend licenses. So I could enable the flexible licensing. I could configure the flexible licensing, as you can see right here. And so what happens there is if I go to configure the flexible licensing, I could either manually configure it, so I can activate or deactivate the licenses myself, or I could set it to automatic. And what that does is as soon as I launch ProFile, the license will be applied on that computer. And then as soon as I close ProFile on that computer, it will deactivate the license temporarily. When I go to my other machine, I launch ProFile, the license will be activated on that computer. And so you don't have to buy two licenses. If you've got two computers, you could use them on both of those machines, one at a time, okay? And so that's another important feature to keep in mind, that you don't have to buy more licenses than you actually need. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. Something else to point out is that carry forward is dead easy. So you could carry forward, of course, from a prior year profile tax file. So if you're working on 2022, you want to carry forward those 2021 T1 returns. And so all you have to do is go to carry forward menu and choose 2021 profile T1. If, however, you were using some other tax application, including Cantax or Tax Prep or DT Max, you could carry forward those files as well. So ProFile will convert those files for you into ProFile files. And you could do that one at a time. You could carry forward one file at a time if you want to, or you could batch carry forward. The choice is yours, depending on, some people like to work on one file at a time. Others want to get all their files ready. It's up to you. ProFile can accommodate your working style. And so carry forward is a very easy kind of procedure. All you have to do, there's a toolbar, as you can see. So I'm pointing to the carry forward icon, or I could just go to the file menu and say carry forward, choice is mine. And I could just go and click carry forward. And my tax files are probably don't have, there you go. So I've got a few. So little tip for you. If you want to do a batch carry forward, you can just click on one, hold down the shift key, and there you go. I've selected a whole bunch of tax files. And now I could carry forward all of these files. Okay, so you could use batch carry forward right from this window as well. And we'll show you a little bit later another way in which you could batch carry forward. So again, you know, the goal is efficiency. The goal is to make things as painless as possible, as quick as possible. And there's a few of those tools that we're talking about to help you become more and more efficient. Okay. If you have been using ProFile, you'll see that there are some brand new Well, the icons aren't new. The icons were always there. The function of the icons were always there. The look of the icons has changed. More, let's call it a cleaner, more modern look. And so we have, for example, a new file icon. We've got a carry forward icon. We've got icons to save and file information and so on and so forth. So you could click on these icons rather than going to the menus. You could hide the toolbar if you don't want to see them. You don't want to see any of this. You could hide the toolbar. You could have the toolbar you want open. And then we've got here, you see it's got a link to a T1 return. And so what you could do is you could customize, I call this the jump bar. So you could customize the jump bar by adding whatever tax forms you want to add. So for example, 90% of the tax files, the T1s that you work on, your tax clients are employees, and you have to always input the T4 information. So what you could do is you could add the T4 entry screen to the jump bar. Or what I always would do is I always wanted to see the 5-year summary. So when I'm working on a tax file, and if it's a client that I've had for a while, I would want to see the tax summary. So there's a window called, kind of getting ahead of myself, but it's important to kind of walk you through this. And so what happens is I want to open up the Form Explorer, because that's how I find the forms that I need, whether it's a T4, T5, RSP, whatever it may be. But there is a form called 5-year. And so I like that 5-year summary. Now, this particular tax client, you can see, wasn't a client last year or in prior years, but if they were, you would quickly go to the 5-year tax summary and you could see the trends. You could see maybe, oh, I forgot something. How come we had interest income in all the other tax years and I don't have any this year? They forgot to give me their T5 maybe. Things like that. And so I would always consult the 5-year summary, and you could take that 5-year summary and you could add it to the jump bar. Okay, you could just drag it up to the jump bar. So you could, again, as we were saying, start personalizing those, the look and feel of ProFile. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. And so some key aspects of the new look icons is obviously redesigned. They're more user-friendly. It's going to increase your efficiency. And yes, we have online tools. We have, see the cloud icon here. So there are some online tools, including online resources, jumps to websites and communities. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And one of the best, and I'm just going to throw this out, I don't have it as a slide, but one of the really useful online tools is you could back up your tax returns to the cloud. So you could actually back up your tax return to Intuit's servers, to Intuit's computers. And that way, you still have your tax files on your own computer. They'll always be there. You're not replacing the location of your tax files. But it's just a way for you to have a backup of those tax files off-site. And if you've ever lost a tax file, or if you've ever had a computer crash, that's painful. And so you could enable backup to the cloud and just kind of harness those online tools that are available for you. Okay, let's move on. So as I said, some people are, I guess we could say there are two types of tax practitioners: batch filers and single filers. And some people like to e-file those tax returns one at a time. Other people want to do batch e-filing. Whichever type you are, ProFile will accommodate you. And so no matter which way you want to do it, you could batch e-file, you could single e-file those tax returns, okay? And we'll show you a little bit later the tool that you could use to do that and more. All right, so let's talk about resources that are available to you, and you could get, there's so many different ways in which you could get support from Intuit and from the profile team. So let's just point out very quickly a few of these. So the first thing is you have a dedicated account manager. Okay, you could always contact a dedicated account manager. You also have a 200-page user guide that's available for you to download. All right, and so if some people like to read a user guide, other people like talking to someone on the phone, other people like to watch a video, other people are webinar driven. Well, you've got all of that. Whatever it is you need, there's a resource for you. And so, yes, there is a 200-page user guide that you can tap into. There's always telephone support, of course. There's a live chat option. If you're working on a tax return and you've got a question, and you want to contact the profile care team, you can enable a live chat session. And as a matter of fact, back when we were doing live training pre-COVID, it happened more than once where we would show people where to click to launch a chat session. And a couple of times during the break or during the lunch break, people would come to me and say, hey, you know, you're talking about that live chat thing, and I was having a problem, and I just clicked on it, and you know what? They solved my problem. You know, while I was sitting there listening to this training session, I was doing a live chat session with the care team, and they took care of my problem. I never knew it was there. And so, yeah, you could use live chat. Keep working. You don't have to wait on hold, let's say. You don't have to go to a website and search. You can just enable a live chat session. And of course, there's in-product help. And so if you want to kind of look up your own help resources, you could launch the in-product help. Just press F1 on your keyboard or just go to the help menu right here. And you could go to the search tab, type in a keyword, you're looking for some kind of information, RSP, tuition, whatever it may be, and you could just tap into the in-product help, which is always there for you. Okay, and we're not done actually with the resources. There's so many other options available to you. And so there is the community. So there's a profile community that you could tap into. It's essentially a community of your peers, and you could view the archives, if you will, view the library, view the questions that people have been asking, and you can ask a question in the online community, okay? And you could just take advantage of those resources. And I have seen some people being very active in the online community. There's a bunch of people who just like helping others. And there's some names that I recognize, you know, longtime profile users who will answer a lot of questions. As I say, it's essentially a community of your peers. The other thing you could do is you could go to recorded videos. So if you like watching videos, if you like to kind of learn at your own pace, there's all kinds of videos that you could go and view and tap into those resources. And of course, there are webinars, but similar to the one we're doing today. This is a kind of a very brief 1-hour webinar. What you could do is you could also come back. I believe it's in November. We're starting our T1 and T2 webinars. They're going to be roughly 3 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours. And we're going to walk you through Profile T1 and Profile T2. We're going to go pretty well in depth. And so that's starting in November. And so there's a lot of options available to you if you want to tap into those resources that are available. Okay, let's move on. What about practice management? How could we make things more streamlined? How could we become more efficient and you know, just kind of get rid of a lot of the burden when it comes to the whole, especially during tax season? And there's some things, let's face it, there are bottlenecks oftentimes when you're working on a client file. Oftentimes we're waiting for client information, and there are a few solutions for you. So one of the ones that is a very recent development is e-signatures. Thankfully, CRA a year or two ago has decided that they're going to accept e-signatures now, and ProFile offers you two different ways of using an e-signature service. You could use DocuSign, or you could use Adobe Sign. So either one of those options are available to you. They're integrated with ProFile. You can view kind of a dashboard of where we're at in terms of as a client signed the authorization form. If not, where are we at with the information that we need? And so you could integrate either DocuSign or Adobe Sign with ProFile. By the way, if you're a Pro Advisor, if you're a QuickBooks Online Pro Advisor, what you can do is you could get a discount on DocuSign. I'm sorry, I don't have QuickBooks running, and I don't want to waste your time. We don't have a lot of time today. But if you go to QuickBooks Online Accountant, so if you're a Pro Advisor, you're using QuickBooks Online Accountant, and what you could do is just click on the Pro Advisor menu. So as soon as you launch into QuickBooks Online Accountant, left-hand navigation bar, you'll see Pro Advisor. Click on that, and in the Benefits tab, you'll see, if you scroll down, there's an available discount if you want to sign up for DocuSign. So you may be eligible for a discount on some of these e-signature services. And so you don't have to wait anymore for a client to come in and physically present themselves and sign these documents. You don't have all that paper shuffling to take care of. All you have to do is electronically send the form, whatever, whether it's a T183, whatever the form is you need to have signed. You could send it electronically, and you could get the client to sign it, and it gets submitted automatically. It's all integrated with ProFile, and that is going to get rid of a massive bottleneck right there. The other very important and often overlooked tool with ProFile is something called Client Explorer. We're going to walk through a few screenshots, and then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into ProFile. I'm just looking at, I see some chat icon is highlighted. Okay, sorry, I thought there was something aimed or directed at me. Just wanted to make sure that everything's okay, but yeah, we're good. Okay, great. So yeah, Client Explorer. It's been around for a long time, and even the people who've been long-time ProFile users don't know about Client Explorer. So it's essentially, as the bullet points out on the slide, it's data mining right at your fingertips. But it's more than that. It's also becoming more efficient. So if you want to batch carry forward a bunch of files, if you want to batch print some files, if you want to batch e-file some files. Some people ask me, how do I send mailing? How do I create mailing labels? I don't know if that still applies very much these days, but if you want to prepare mailing labels, there's a way to do that in ProFile as well. And so Client Explorer is a tool for workflow management. Okay, so you could use Client Explorer to, as I said, batch e-file, batch print, batch open, whatever it may be, a bunch of tax files. But over and above that, it's also a way to get information. You want to create a report on any kind of client criteria. Example, you could say, how many of my clients got a refund this year versus had to pay? I don't know why you want to know that, but if you want to know that, you could get that information out of Client Explorer. You could create reports. You could export that information into Excel, for example. You could print those reports. You could create PDFs of that information. You could create your own reporting. You could filter. I'm going to show you in a minute. And so these are all the kinds of things you could do with Client Explorer, and it's included in ProFile. So it helps you manage your clients, it helps you manage your files, it helps you get information on those client returns, and it helps you view all of your client files all in the same place, all the various types of files. So notice we've got some T2 files, we've got some T1 files, and if we had T3 or FX files, we would see those here as well. You could filter this. Okay, notice there's a filter up here. So you could filter, you could search by client name. Okay, you could create different views. Show me only the T1 files that are eligible for e-filing, for example. Okay, show me only the T2 files for a given year. You can filter and extrapolate the information that you want based on whatever your requirements are. And so Client Explorer gives you client-centered records. You can create customized views, customized reports. Batch functionality is dead easy, okay? And it gives you all kinds of access to client details. And so let me just very quickly show you where Client Explorer resides. If you go to the Go-To menu, okay, right here, it says Client Explorer.
Sorry to interrupt, Mike.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. There was a question about, how to enable Client Explorer. Can you quickly go through that motion?
You're really cutting out, Benoit. I'm sorry, I couldn't quite grasp that. Maybe you could you put it in the chat panel and I can read it there if that's okay. I just couldn't understand quite what you were saying there. So here's Client Explorer, and as I said, you could filter. So if I click the filter button, I could say just show me right down. If you look at the bottom part of the screen here, I could just ask for T1 files or T2 or FX or T3, and I could filter by tax type. I could filter by year, and I could filter by, notice down here, it says T1 e-file status. If you're doing Quebec returns, TP1 e-file status. You could filter by events, different types of events. Very powerful tool, and it's built right into ProFile, okay? We do go into the discussion on Client Explorer in a bit more detail in our longer webinar sessions. Let me just go and see if, yeah, sorry, Benoit, I couldn't quite grasp what you were asking there. Okay, just keeping an eye, it's already 22. I talk too much maybe, but anyway, we're going to wrap things up in about 10 minutes or so. Just a few more things to kind of point out, and then we'll maybe go to just a few questions. If there are any questions, I might read a few questions. Or maybe if Benoit or Julie have anything they would like to add, we could kind of open that up. But let's just keep going in the PowerPoint. And so now we're going to show you some best practices. Here's some tools and some tips and tricks that you might want to consider as you're working on tax files. So first thing, you want to save time. You want to make sure you're complete. You want to make sure your tax return is accurate. Then you should be using Autofill My Return. You're probably familiar with Autofill My Return. Maybe you're using it already. Of course, ProFile is ready to go with Autofill My Return. Okay, Autofill My Return, as you can see right here, it's a way to import the CRA data. So all of the T4 or T3, all those T-slips, and a whole bunch of other important information, capital gains and other things such as that. You could import that directly into the tax file, okay? And it works for T1 and T2 as well. And so Autofill My Return has been around for a number of years now. I'm not quite sure how many years, but it's got to be 5 or 6 years, I would think, for sure. And it's a wonderful way to become more efficient, get ProFile to import all of that data that CRA already has, and make sure you don't forget anything. Just a personal experience, I had a client for many years, and they had all kinds of investment income. They had so many T3s and T5s and so on. And 1 year, actually not 1 year, more than 1 year, no matter how often I said, this is pre-autofill my return. I'm going back, 8 or 10 years. And I would always say, okay, you've given me all your slips, right? We've got everything. Yep, got everything. Go ahead. We're going to go ahead and e-file this thing. Yeah, go ahead and e-file. They sign the authorization form. And then sure enough, the letter comes from CRA, unreported income. Well, after a couple of years of unreported income, the penalty is onerous, and my poor client got nailed penalty and interest for unreported income because they kept losing those T3s and T5s. And back then we didn't really have any recourse. We had to rely on the client giving us the information. But now with Autofill My Return, you could double check to make sure that that information is complete. Okay. And as I say, you can do Autofill My Return for both your T1 files and your T2 files. I'm getting a low resources warning. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to stop my video. Now that I guess everyone knows what I look like, let me stop the video and let's see if that's going to kind of increase some bandwidth here. Okay, let's keep going. So Autofill My Return, it's a must. We should absolutely be using Autofill My Return. Another thing that I think is very important to point out is what if, that age-old question, right? We're always sitting with a client and the question comes up, what if, especially maybe those self-employed clients, those people that have their own unincorporated business, you're working on a T2125, or there's potential to split income, or who knows what the situation is. And you also want to do some tax planning for the next year. So there's 2 ways to a tax plan in ProFile. There actually is a planner that's built right in. So let me just show you. If I open up that tax file, let me close Client Explorer here. And I know we don't have much time, so I got to go rather quickly here. Let me just say no to that. And so again, using the Form Explorer. So I open up Form Explorer, I type in the word plan, okay? And there's my tax plan. Okay, so now what I could do is I could do a future year tax plan. So if I'm working in a 2021 module, I could prepare a 2022 tax plan. I could even import the data from that 2021 tax return. So see right here, it says copy T1 return. And so I could bring in that 2021 information, use it as a base for my 2022 tax plan. And then I could scroll down here and start adding whatever I need to add and get some information about what the plan would look like for the next year. Okay, so now I could start seeing a little chart. It's not much here right now, but as I would add numbers in there, I would start seeing the chart show me how much is after tax, federal tax, and so on. I could even do a calculation on installments. I could do an RSP analysis, all by using the tax planner. Okay, and that's right in ProFile. You could do that with any T1 tax file. Do a tax plan for the following year. The other thing you could do is you could actually change the tax table, okay? And so let me go back to the PowerPoint. Right over here on the info page, when you're working with a tax client, a T1, you could actually choose the tax year. So if you're doing a 2021 tax return, okay, and you want to do a 2022 tax plan, you could take that 2021 tax return and tell ProFile, okay, actually use the 2022 tax tables. I just want to see what if, what's it going to look like next year if we have this and if we have that and if we have this other thing. But it's a very complicated return. There's a bunch of self-employment income, there's a bunch of rental income and a bunch of investments. And so maybe the tax planner is not the tool I want. I want to see all of the forms and all of the slips, and I just want to use next year's tax tables. And you could do that in ProFile. You could just tell it that you want to use next year's tax tables on that tax return. Okay. Something else. Now, let me just give me a second. I'm just going to go to the chat if you don't mind. Oh, someone is asking how to enable Client Explorer. Okay. Let me show you. Thanks for that, Benoit. So if you want to enable Client Explorer, all you've got to do is go to Options and Database. Okay, go to the database, and there are actually two databases in ProFile. There's Client Explorer, and then there's one called Classic Database, which personally I wouldn't use. It's kind of more of an old school kind of programming type of database. So if you want to enable Client Explorer, all you have to do is choose that radio button, and notice there's even a setup wizard. And it's going to ask you a bunch of questions. Are you working in an office by yourself? Are you sharing tax files, say, on a network? So just walk through the wizard, answer those questions. And by the way, you could go to the ProFile website, go find those videos, and just click on support, and you'll see the videos are right there. And there's some videos that walk you through Client Explorer. Okay. I think our last slide, which is good because we're just about out of time. I've got 2 minutes left. Snapshot and variance. Here's another feature that's been in ProFile for quite a while. A lot of even long-time ProFile users don't know that it's there. And what you could do with snapshot and variance is, first of all, you could enable a variance threshold, for example. And so if you want to view trends, view differences from this year to last year, for example, and you want ProFile to highlight any difference above a certain dollar amount or above a percentage. Okay, so what you could do is you could go and set those things. So if we go into, whoops, I clicked the wrong button. Give me a second. Let me just go back, go to Options module. And you'll see there's a variance tab here. And I could say any differences that are above $5,000 or above, let's say, 15%. Highlight them. Whoop, not 150, 15%. Highlight them. And I could say, by default, when I carry forward a file, highlight any differences that are above these thresholds. And now you're using the variance feature to point out anything that might be misleading, that might be missing. Okay. The other thing you could do is you could take snapshots of a tax file. And for example, you're working on a tax return, you're putting in some information, you file the tax return, and then the client says, oops, I forgot to submit this, that, or the other slip or form or whatever the case may be. And let's say you have to file a T1 adjustment. Well, you could take a snapshot of the tax return as it was filed, make changes to that file, and then go and enable snapshot and use that feature to automatically complete the T1 adjustment. ProFile is going to analyze the two versions of the tax file, and any changes between the two will get populated on the T1 adjustment. Those are just a few examples of how you could use uh, snapshot and variance. So notice right here is a snapshot. So I could take a snapshot of the tax file as it now appears. I could just say, take a snapshot. Taking a snapshot is just ProFile remembering all of the values and all of the fields and all of the slips as they currently stand. And I could say, okay, and now I've got a snapshot. And then I say, okay, well, now I have to do a T1 adjustment, and I've got some additional information that I forgot to put in the first time the client didn't give me. Like there's another, for example, there's another T4 that they forgot to give me, and it's for $40,000 or something, whatever the case may be. I make the changes to that tax file. I call up the T1 adjustment, okay? There's my T1 adjustment, it's empty. I right click and I say, adjust it based on the snapshot. And there you go. It's completely filled for me. How long did that take? No time at all. And so these are the built-in tools that you've got to make things more efficient, more effective, and a lot easier for you. Okay, let me go back to our presentation. I think that was the last slide. Yes, that was the last slide. So what I'm going to do is let me just go to the Q&A and see if there's any questions I can answer very quickly. Someone is saying you may want to recommend that the client gets a My account needed for autofill. So yes, the autofill My return, if you're a tax practitioner, you should already have represent the client set up with CRA. You have to be authorized to use autofill. So thank you for them. Thank you for that, Azim. Important to have all the tools at your disposition. So you need to set up an electronic type of access to those client tax files. So you have to set up authorize represent a client with CRA. And Teresa is saying autofill for business customers. Absolutely, you could use autofill for T2 clients. It doesn't work quite the same way as T1 clients, because obviously most T2s, there's no slips, there's no T4s, there's no there's no RSPs. So CRA doesn't have that information. But what you could do is autofill prior year information. You could see all the carry forwards. You could see whatever information CRA has for that client, especially that Schedule 4, right? Those losses, those famous loss carry forwards and carry backs. Do your numbers agree with CRA? And that's the kind of stuff you could do with a T2 autofill. It's fantastic. I really highly recommend you give it a try. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. So perhaps what I'll do, Stacy, if you would like to kind of close things off, and before I hand the microphone over to Stacy, thank you everyone for coming today. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the whole team for being there in the background, answering questions, what have you. And Stacy, it's all yours.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike. And thanks everybody for joining today. My name is Stacy Minkhorst. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at Intuit, working on the ProFile product. We did want to let you know, I know there was questions around the recording. So we'll be sending that in the next couple of days. We are at Thursday, so you might receive it early next week. And in that email, you'll also be provided with an account manager that you can reach out to if you have any further questions about ProFile or want to learn more. As Mike mentioned, we're also running our annual ProFile training tour in November and December that really helps educate existing and new customers on ProFile and all its features and capabilities. So look out for communications on that and registration information. And finally, as Mike alluded to and showed a screenshot of our website, we had a promotional offer running that was meant to end on September 26th. But we've actually extended that offer into October in order for more new customers to ProFile to take advantage of it. So at the moment, into mid-October, you can save on ProFile for a limited time. So we're offering $140 off of our suite products, $120 off of our T1, T2 bundles, and $55 off our T1 standalone. So really now is a great time to purchase ProFile if you're interested in the product for tax year 22. So again, thank you all for being here today. We really appreciate it. And please check out our ProFile community for any upcoming webinars and our training tour dates. Thanks very much, everybody.